What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Karnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, we have made it to week 5 and what could be the biggest week of the season as far as games go. I mean, there's massive games that it probably won't even make your games we're watching list as we get to the third quarter of this episode. It's a huge week. I might even change one of my questions. I might do 3 questions this week because of a stat for this week I want to bring up. But big week 5 ahead, man. I think we just got to dive into this one.
Yeah, I agree. This one's huge. If anyone invited you to a fall wedding this weekend, I'm not saying violence is the answer, but I'm definitely saying RSVP no to that thing. So
I was just telling someone this week, do you remember that it might have been 2016 or 2015. It was one of the two. After we had met and became friends, a coworker invited us to a wedding.
They got married in 2016. They invited us in 2015.
It was that game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we knew, we said 15, like, it's the weekend of that game.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And they're like, how do you know? What do you know? We're talking about next year. I'm like, me too.
Well aware.
College football always happens in September every year. So
it was October. I remember.
Or whatever it was. Yeah. Just so you know, it's always college football will happen again next year and the year after that. So if you plan for the fall, you can plan 10 years in advance. You know what? I probably will go ahead and tell you no. Even if it's a bye week, you're going to get even if it is my team's bye week, that's what people just don't understand. But
they don't get it. And if you're listening to this show, you probably do understand, which we love and appreciate. My mom's birthday is Saturday, Daniel.
Thoughts and prayers, man.
I already asked her a few weeks ago where she wants to go to dinner on Friday or Sunday, or if she'd like a big breakfast on Saturday. Love my mom.
Dude, that's a great son right there. Planning ahead, okay? It's the thought that counts.
Trying to. All right, man. First quarter, what's one thing you learned after these week 4 games have wrapped up?
Dude, I'm going to say, if I could say it in all caps, I would. The transfer portal matters, okay? The top 7 transfer portal classes are currently undefeated, 4-0 through 4 weeks. So if you're, of course, I'm going off the composite on 24/7 Sports. So that's kind of the industry standard. So if you go look there at the transfer portal rankings, the top 7, I'm not going to go through every team. They're all undefeated currently. Transfix that against. Look at Clemson, who's probably the biggest offender of the transfer portal. They're 1-3. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but that's certainly something that matters. If you're going to keep up with the Joneses, you're going to fill immediate holes on your roster. You are going to continue to lose players in the transfer portal, so you have to fight fire with fire. So if you're going to lose a developed talent, you need to bring in developed talent. You cannot rely solely on high school. Definitely, you and I agree. High school is probably the best route to go, but you can't have one and not the other. So you definitely have to supplement. And dude, if you lose like a guy who's about to be your stud starter at wide receiver or something, you can't just count on a freshman to come in and do it. Those guys need time to develop. Only the freaks are great right away. So you need someone who's, been in a program before. So yeah, I'm just very high on, some of that correlation. I know it's early and I know there's a lot of non-conference, so that's probably puffing up their stats. Just if I'm going to be, watching Clemson this week lose to Syracuse in the fashion they did, and then just seeing some of these other teams, Ole Miss maybe being one of them, just look like they're not even skipping a beat from all the people they lost last year to the NFL. So just something to keep in mind.
I love it. I thought Medalia had a good tweet today in relation to that because that stat was going out. I thought it was fascinating. He said the same thing you said, which is, all right, let's get into conference play and see how it goes. And then 2, and there's teams who overlap here, but if you look at national title odds, only a couple of those teams are like in the top 10 for national title odds because, it's the mix, like you mentioned. But like Oregon, Miami, top 5 classes in high school, top 5 classes in transfer. Like there's a reason Miami's the favorite to win the ACC, to your point about Clemson. Daniel, I learned something I should have learned last year with context. Dude, Kirk Cinetti's just a good coach. He's just a good football coach. I took Indiana to win. I took Illinois to cover. Regret that. And he's just going to run it up when he gets the chance. He's a quarterback guru. Mendoza looks better than Rourke ever looked last year. He's 34-6 overall as a head coach. He's had 4 seasons of a head coach, or this is his 4th season. He had 2 seasons at James Madison. He went 8-3 and then 11-1. Indiana last year, he goes 11-2 in year one. He's 4-0 to start the year. I'm liking just looking at their schedule, what they did to Illinois. I like their chances to be in playoff position by the end of the year. I'm just going to start picking Indiana in these games. I still like, it's almost like the Penn State principle when they go up against a top 5 team or top 10 team. Not sure what to do there, but
like fade them a little
anything
bit.
less than that. And I know if you're going to say, well, Illinois is ranked in the top 10, they shouldn't have been. XPR, they were never that high. We would
Fraudulent.
never.
We would.
But dude, he's just a good coach. He's a quarterback guru. 34-6 overall. The wins speak for themselves. I know he rubs people the wrong way, including me, with some of his comments he's made, but good football coach. Curt Cignetti, good football coach. That's what I learned.
So you think they're better this year than last year? They're a playoff team last year, but you think if this year's team lined up against last year's team?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where I'd have to dive into that. I'm not sure is my answer, but I think that part of what's playing into this is they were on our radar last year. And so now it's like, wow, they had to replace all that and they're still this good. Like, I think I doubted them for a lot of last year. I'd have to dive into that. That's curious. They look very, very good so far.
I am certainly a prisoner of the moment, and I'm looking at
Yes.
Mendoza being a NFL
Yes.
quarterback. And so I'm like, okay, he's, NFL quarterback versus, last year they had a solid, system quarterback. But yeah, I think that I think Mendoza could be a first-round pick this year if he plays the rest of the year outright, and could be a Heisman contender. All that kind of stuff is certainly ahead for him. So I like it.
There's people already saying that, Daniel, that there was someone who came out draft, these draft gurus, quote unquote, who had him as first quarterback taken as of right now, which
he checks a lot of boxes for NFL guys, which is big. And then he seems like a really good processor, and he throws a pretty ball, all the makings. So
yeah,
awesome. Well, all right, let's jump into quarter 2 then. I'll go ahead with my first question for quarter 2.
Hit me with it.
Just 2 questions we have. I'm going to go ahead and get the big one here, okay? Which trend continues? Is it Kalen DeBoer's poor road streak, or is it Kirby Smart's elite home streak? They're both going to be put to the test this week. I'm going to obviously save my pick for later, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Kalen DeBoer has been, most of his losses have come on the road, and he has not just on the road, but anywhere away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. He has looked less than stellar. His teams have looked sloppy and unprepared. I don't know if it's a communication thing, if it's a process thing. Saban, we're always going to compare it, sorry, but Saban was a, master of process. So being able to do that on the road, being able to, replicate the same thing every week, you wonder if maybe it's a maturity thing. Guys, have a little more leeway with DeBoer. It could just be dumb luck. It could just be that they played good teams on the road. It could be that it really is that big of an advantage. I don't know. And on the flip side, Kirby Smart lost 3 games his first year at Georgia at home and has lost 1 game since, that game being in 2019. 33 straight home games. That's elite. Obviously, you factor in home games. You're also going to play smaller opponents at times when you have some of your paid games.
Sure.
So that kind of comes in with the wash. But it is what it is, dude. He's the longest home winning streak active in college football by at least 10 games. So, yeah, that's a big deal. And it's in the SEC, toughest conference. They have not played Alabama, and Alabama has stopped multiple Georgia streaks previously, whether that be just winning streaks for certain seasons, or, they've been their big Achilles heel the past, several years. So this is their first time in Athens in the Kirby Smart era. So curious how that's going to play out on Saturday.
That's a good question. Well, I'll have an answer for you here in our 4th quarter of the show. Daniel, my first question is, who's the best team in the state of Texas? And I'll ask you, I have my ranking, but I'll list the teams, Daniel, because the state of Texas has 12 FBS teams. 7 of those are ranked inside the top 50 of SP+. 8, if you go to 55, top 55, North Texas being included in that. They've had a very good season. But I especially look at the tree. I'll include 4. I look at the 4 top schools as of right now, which is Texas A&M, Texas, Texas Tech, TCU. I accidentally just read my order of how I'd have them right now. That's what I'd have today. I think Texas A&M is the best team in the state of Texas right now, but I think you've got a really good, like, this is a very deep state for college football. Always has been, but this year especially, SMU's kind of fallen off, but TCU looks very good. Texas Tech looks very good. Texas, I know, lost at Ohio State, but they're still top 2 or 3 in national title odds. A&M has come out, won on the road at Notre Dame. They've got a big game this week we're going to talk about. But that's my question going forward is, who is the best team in the state of Texas? And potentially, how many teams in the state of Texas get into the college football playoff this year?
That'd be crazy, man. That'd be crazy. Yeah, just as a comment on your question, because I don't know the answer. I'm glad we get at least one of these. We get Texas and Texas A&M at the end of the year to kind of decide it. But Texas Tech, I mean, blew the doors off of Utah at Utah.
Yes.
And honestly, it should have been worse. And they were held back by some penalties and some procedural stuff earlier in the game. Yeah, Texas Tech, very impressed. I mean, they had the backup quarterback in and they were doing their thing. Will Hammond doing his thing. So I'm impressed, to say the least, with Texas Tech. They are maybe a year ahead of where I had them kind of in this schedule. And again, transfer portal, big deal. So they're spending money in NIL and transfer portal, bringing in guys. So we'll see, man. Texas Tech, they might start being the class of the Big 12. I mean, I don't want to overreact to 1 week, but they might start being like the kings of the Big 12, and they might give themselves an invite to a bigger conference if they do this for a couple of years and show they're, as committed as they've shown so far.
They're spending like it, right? Like, they're spending like a program that wants to compete. I mean, in a conference that has the most parity and the most, average teams, if you can be very good, you can absolutely run that conference. So that was my first question. Daniel, what is your second question as we head into week 5?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it in the Big 12. Mike Gundy was let go this week. He was let go yesterday. It was kind of a weird situation. If they're going to fire him, why not on Saturday? Why did they wait? Also, you kind of take, everybody Monday morning quarterbacks this thing, and it's like, why fire him now? Why not give him till the end of the year? All of a sudden, everybody cares about him after he's been fired. Before that, they're like, when is he going to be fired? So I kind of don't like how people talk out of both sides of their mouth. I'll keep it positive because you and I have always been Gundy fans as far as like his character that he plays. And obviously he's been the best, coach in that program's history with very little competition. Do you think he's going to change another college football program for the better? Or do you think he's a lock for TV? Because I feel like there's been, a lot of people just saying, oh yeah, just sign up and go to TV and he'll be a great character. I just watched, a 5-minute clip of just all his press conference, quotes that he's had over the years. And I forgot how many great ones there are. Obviously there's those few famous ones, but I mean, there's just so many good ones. So he'd be a great for sound bites, but I mean, he can coach ball. I think it got stale where he was, and the message, it just wasn't going to keep going through. But I wonder, man, he said him and his, I think his cousin or somebody that works on staff both said that, he was like, he's talked about going coaching somewhere else and I'm going with him, So I'm wondering if he's going to go somewhere, maybe do off-field analyst somewhere for a little bit and then work his way back on as maybe an OC and then eventually a head coach, or if he's just going to try to hop on a small program as a head coach right away and work his way up. I don't know. Any thoughts there on Mike Gundy?
He said he wants to coach. It's funny. My second question is, who will be the next victim of adapt or die? Or you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Mike Gundy, from 2005 to 2025, from 2006 to 2023, never had a losing season, always above 500. His first season was his last losing season. Before, first losing season since 2005. They were winless in conference play for the first time since 1980 something, which is crazy because in 2021, Daniel, if you remember the Baylor-Oklahoma State Big 12 championship, where Oklahoma State was one play away from the college football playoff. They were 12-1. Baylor holds them at the goal line with that play where the guy ran off the pylon, that one Baylor defender one-on-one stops him short. If they score that touchdown, Daniel, they're in the college football playoff in 2021 over Cincinnati. They lost to Tulsa at home for the first time since the feast. So, Dabo we've talked about in this. I'll come back to Gundy. He's not adapted and how quickly some of your fan base can turn on you. Read a great article from Chris Lowe today he interviewed Kirby Smart, and even Kirby said they don't give you any grace for being an alumni. He's like, if I start losing, they'll be asking me to pack quick. He knows that as the head coach who's won 2 national championships recently, just like Dabo has. Dabo from 2012 to 2020 only lost more than 2 games one time in 2014. Since that year, since 2020, they've gone 9-3, 9-3, 7-4, 7-4, 0-3 this season against Power 4 opponents. Only a 66% winning percentage against Power 4 opponents since that 2020 season, and they've lost 5 out of the last 6 games against Power 4 opponents. My question is, who's next? Is it Kirk Ferentz? Is it Mark Stoops of this? You refuse to change, and you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Because Gundy, of course, like us growing up as Gundy's been a head coach, had some amazing teams, some great moments. I hope he goes to TV selfishly because I think he'd be very good at it. I hope he does something independent where he can say stuff unfiltered because I think he'd just be a treasure trove for entertainment. So that's my answer.
Kind of like how Gruden is. I feel like he'd be similar to Gruden in the. Hey, he's more of a. Yeah, he was a good coach, and I mean he was a great coach at times, but a good coach. But he's more fondly thought of by what he says. So like, let's not have him be hated on the field. Let's have him be loved off the field.
Also, Pate has pointed this out. Like, no one goes to TV and looks worse than they did when they were coaching. They all look better. Like Dan Mullen, John Gruden are good example. Like, because they all go on TV and they all know ball and they all look like geniuses talking. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot you were a major college football coach since 2005. Like, it's John Gruden, you won a Super Bowl. That's right. You actually know what you're talking about. They all look like geniuses, and then they all look very attractive to schools once they go on TV. So I think for his sake, and selfishly for my sake, for entertainment, I'd love to see him go to TV. And I think it's going to be a good career move because he can look great if he wants to go do something at another school. But yeah, best to Gundy. It was time. My question is with the timing is like, if you were going to fire him 4 games into the season, if that was how long his lease was, why in the world did he start the season?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I don't get.
With anyone who's firing coach, Virginia Tech, same thing goes for them. But yeah, who's next? Daniel, I have a bonus question for you. This comes from the Bear, Chris Felica. Over under 3.5 ranked teams on the road this week, losing outright to an unranked opponent. Here are those games. Number 1, Ohio State at Washington. Number 8, Florida State at Virginia. Number 11, Indiana at Iowa. Number 15, Tennessee at Mississippi State. Number 16, Georgia Tech at Wake Forest. Number 22, Notre Dame at Arkansas. Number 24, TCU at Arizona State. Number 25, BYU at Colorado. You might mention some of these in your games you're watching. We're not picking any of these against the spread, but I'll give you the leeway to talk about those here in a little bit. But that's 8 ranked teams on the road against unranked opponents that have point spreads under 10 points. So
it's scary.
This is going to be a warning now. Don't do anything on Saturday. Like, there's huge games, and there's games like this where it's going to be like, there's 4 minutes left, and Ohio State is only up 21-20 on Washington. Like, what's going on?
Washington has the ball. What's going on?
Right. It's hard to win on the road at college football. Way harder than it is to win on the road in the NFL. It's very different. And I thought the line was very good. Over under 3.5 ranked teams. Me just being a college football fan wants to go over. I thought that was a good bonus question from Chris Felica there on Twitter.
Yeah, the first couple you mentioned, I'm like, under. Okay. This is a lot of games. Okay.
I was like,
3.5 might be a good number. At first I'm like, 3.5. That's so, maybe
I think it's probably 3.
Maybe 2. But I mean, yes.
3 is a
good, a game that I don't have on my games watching that it just made the cut, like it just got cut off. It was on the, on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
That was Tennessee at Mississippi State. That's just I feel like it's just a sneaky one.
Have you seen that spread?
No.
Hold on. It was
Mississippi
moving
State's
early
currently
in the week,
undefeated, right? They're undefeated currently.
They should be ranked for what it's worth.
And they've definitely surprised some people. They're supposed to be the worst team in the SEC. Going to Mississippi State is always tough. #Klanga. and also just Tennessee, like the gut wrenching loss for Georgia 2 weeks ago, they're able to turn that into beating UAB pretty strong. But like, that was kind of a get right game. Are they confident going into this game? Are they overconfident? What's their mindset? I think if both teams play their best game, Tennessee should win by 10. But if, again, I said both teams playing their best, if not, then that leaves room for error. And I don't know. Levy seems to have some magic dust on him this year.
It opened at 10. It is down to 7.5. Our good friend Parker Fleming at StatsAwar on Twitter, he has a great website, cfbgraphs.com. He has Tennessee by 1.4 in his projection. That game right there has what's going on written all over.
It's got some stank on it.
Absolutely. Daniel, as we move into halftime of our show, we've got an update to the XPR. Not a lot of movement in the top 10. I guess a big jump, honestly, is Alabama and Florida State dropping a little bit, but some movement at the bottom. We've still got Vandy ranked at 19th, Georgia Tech at 20. Auburn, we, unlike the AP, understand context in that I didn't understand, this is why I don't like the AP poll, is you have Illinois in the top 10, and people say, oh, they got killed, so, we can't drop them 16 spots because I had them at 10. Instead of, which I do this every week, Daniel, I start fresh and say, oh, I was wrong, which I didn't have Illinois, but like maybe 19th in my poll. I'm like, oh, maybe they're like 26th instead of 19th. And now they're dropped out. So I think you can't be like, oh, well, they lost on the road to a ranked opponent, so I can't drop them X amount of spots versus wipe the slate clean and say, who are the best 25 teams or best 25 resumes in college football? That being said, because like Auburn got dropped out for losing by a touchdown when, let's just call it what it was. I think Oklahoma won that game worse than the score. But when it's a one-score game and you have the SEC say we messed up on a touchdown play when it's a one-score game, to drop Auburn for that and not drop Illinois out but getting beat by 53, I think is a shame. That being said, we have Auburn ranked at 24, and we don't have Illinois ranked. USC up at 14. Penn State at 13, behind Indiana, which, again, to this point in the season, I think is correct. Behind Texas Tech as well. I think we're on that as far as 11 and 12 being good spots for Indiana and Texas Tech.
It's just kind of funny seeing Texas Tech ahead of Texas right now. Like,
yeah,
if you're asking me if they played tomorrow, like I might lean Texas Tech based off of vibes right now, but
right.
It's kind of, it's unsettling because
it is unsettling.
We've been putting Texas at 1, at 2 in the top 5, and they slowly are slipping out of that. And, we've got to see them have a big time win. Something that Billy Lucci from, he's at TexAgs.com, I believe, Texas A&M, one of their most well-known beat writer, but he had that stat about Texas. I think was 11 out of 14 games that they've played have been backup quarterbacks, and then the next 2 are looking very possible that they could be playing backup quarterbacks, which Florida might be without Lagway, potentially. They said he's going to be ready. We'll see. And then Oklahoma, we didn't even mention this so far, but John Mateer, first of all, if he won that game with a broken hand, I mean,
impressive.
Let's just give him some flowers, okay? Beating Auburn is tough enough. Doing it with a broken throwing hand.
So it was like the first drive, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what's coming out is the broken bone in the hand. Dude, there's a couple. Dude, he's just slinging it, and it was. I mean, if he's able to throw a ball like that with partially broken hand, I mean, impressive. Obviously, hope he's speedy recovery because he's been really one of the things that's right with college football so far this year.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Hopefully, we get to see him, and hopefully, they get their true chance in the SEC, and then also potentially in the playoff this year. Definitely don't want that. Look, good thing Michael Hawkins got that experience last year because if he has to play a couple weeks this year, maybe he's more prepared this year to kind of step in and be good. Michael Hawkins Jr., their backup quarterback. But anyways, yeah, it's kind of weird. Texas at 15, they're slowly slipping out of that honeymoon phase that everybody's had them with because Arch just has not looked. He had his Heisman moment according to some folks this past weekend against Sam Houston State, or I believe that's who they played. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, John Mateer, I hope he gets a shot, man. All right. Third quarter, Danny, we have a big week ahead. We're only picking 4 games here against the spread. What are 3 games that you've got your eye on this weekend?
Yeah, you mentioned a couple when we were going through our unranked, hosting some ranked teams that are, all on the road. First one is just one that stinks to me, man. Virginia welcoming in Florida State. Virginia, top 5 in the country in running the ball. They are number 4, I believe, in the FBS in running. Wearing some clean looking uniforms. Jacob, I sent it over to you. This might be a nice little uniform matchup, little teaser. Florida State 6.5-point favorite on a Friday night when you play high school ball. Sometimes it's just, I feel like bad juju going on when you playing on a Friday night on the road against the unranked opponent. I don't know. Florida State, they got a big matchup coming up with Miami. They've got, some big games coming up. They just beat the tar out of Kent State. We'll see. We'll see. That one just stinks to me, so I'm curious about it. Other game I'll be watching is Big Noon Kickoff, dude. We don't have it on our pick list, and I think it's just because of how bad Illinois lost. I think we both just kind of, it fell just off the card this week for us. So Illinois, technically still ranked, against USC. USC, one of those teams is climbing. Jaden Maiava, really one of the most efficient passers in college football right now, continuing his work from last year where he kind of finished the year as starting quarterback and then really has looked good so far this year. So USC is a 6.5-point favorite on the road. I'm going to keep my eye on it, man, because if USC beats them handily, and it makes me feel good about USC on one sense, Illinois kind of gives them a tough game. It kind of just keeps questions out there. Like, is Illinois, did they just have one bad week? Is it a bad matchup? Is USC legit? There's a lot of that kind of stuff that comes into it. But, you can kind of measure Illinois versus Indiana by that common opponent. So I'll be keeping my eye on that. Last game is another one you mentioned. Notre Dame on the road at Arkansas. Arkansas have a gut-wrenching loss last week to was it last week to Ole Miss or the week before?
Last week.
Yeah, last week.
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Anyways, so Arkansas just they can't get out of their own way sometimes. They have some of these losses that just kind of compound, and you want Sam Pittman. Everybody's a Sam Pittman fan. Everyone I talk to, nobody. I don't feel like anybody has any ill will for him. They want him to do well. The offense has looked good. They've had turnovers. Sometimes they just play tough teams, and it's tough. This is one of those times where, I don't know, man, they're at home. It's a 3.5-point spread. Notre Dame has to win out. Kirk Herbstreit has predicted them to win out and make the playoff. They have to do it for Kirk. He's putting his life on the line. I'm just kidding. But Arkansas, I don't know, man. This is just one of those games that they're not supposed to win, and it's supposed to line up for Notre Dame coming in on the road. This is one of those that I would circle as, you mentioned that long list earlier, over under 3.5. This is one of the 3.5 plus if we're going over. This is one of the ones that has to hit, I think, because I think Arkansas is the type of team get you in a shootout, and they've got a guy that can do it. So they also have the highest graded offensive line through 4 games so far. I know it's PFF, so people, grain of salt in sometimes they weigh it heavily. Whatever you want to do with PFF, they're the number 1 rated offensive line. Sam Pittman's also that dude when it comes to offensive line play. So I at least give it a little credence. But yeah, those are my 3 games I'm watching.
I love it. Those are good. There's plenty more to watch on Saturday. Clear the schedules. Big Saturday you don't want to miss. Daniel, for the third quarter for me, 3 uniform matchups I've got my eye on. I had a list of 3, 9, 12, 15 to start with. A big week for uniforms. Here's the 3 I settled on. UVA, I do like the throwbacks. My hot take on those is, 1, they don't look that different from their current uniforms, and 2, at least their current pants have a pants stripe, and those are plain. I'm anti-plain pants. Have something on your pants. Like the block numbers, of course, but like it is a perfect match for a throwback, and I like the sleeve logo. I've become more of a fan of sleeve logos instead of sleeve stripes. Like I want some variation, I don't want everybody going to a stripe or everybody having a logo. That's why I love the tiger paw on Clemson's shoulders. It's unique. It's clean. It's good.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Ole Miss, LSU. Lots of good options. I went back through, Daniel, I was in bed last night just looking Ole Miss versus LSU 2024, 2023, just looking at all the uniform matchups. I only saw one bad one, which was maybe it's 2020, which, COVID, you can throw out that year, but Ole Miss wore white helmets, white pants, and a red jersey. Just didn't look like Ole Miss. Looked bad.
Yeah.
That was the only bad one, but they've worn the combo of red jersey with either a powder blue or navy helmet almost every year, and they've worn the powder blue on powder blue a couple times against LSU. Plenty of good looks. LSU, just a classic look.
Rinse
so
and
these
repeat.
color
They're great.
combos,
Yep.
yeah, either red or blue or a mix of both is going to look really good against LSU. So really excited for that one. Look, Penn State and Oregon. Need I say more? Oregon just needs to make a clean look. When Oregon messes up, Daniel, it's usually a color look and not an away look. Their away looks it's kind of hard to mess up just because they have really good templates and they can
Also,
wear
with
different.
it being a whiteout, I feel like the optics is just going to look so good.
Yeah.
Like the game itself is going to be beautiful.
Absolutely. It's going to be beautiful to watch. Lastly, Washington and Ohio State. That's going to be a great one. I've become a big fan of Washington's uniforms. Their latest update is very, very clean. I am rooting for, Daniel, that Washington wears gold helmet, purple jersey, gold pants, because then Ohio State's going to have silver helmet, white jersey, silver pants. So that'll be, or gray, whatever. That could be really aesthetically pleasing, and like the red and the purple kind of being opposite sides will pop. Hope they don't go purple unitard. It won't make the list at the end of the week here that I'll do. I didn't forget to mention, Daniel, the winner of the uniform matchup of the week for week 4 was Michigan State and USC, which we did have on our watch list. That looked beautiful on TV. I'll mention a couple more. Arkansas and Notre Dame could be very good. Georgia Bama is a great helmet game, but the two different shades of red don't look great. And hot take, I don't love Alabama's away uniforms. Just never been a fan for me personally because the crimson doesn't really pop on the helmet. It's kind of dull. And on the jersey as well. The jersey color at home looks great, but when it's like pops of crimson, it's too dull for me. Arizona State, TCU could be great. Texas A&M, Auburn. Iowa State and Arizona could be very good. Kansas State, UCF. West Virginia, Utah. Lots of good uniform matchups to keep your eye on this week. I like my 3. Excited to see what wins uniform matchup of the week for this week. Fourth quarter of our show. Fourth quarter is where great teams become elite and win football games. We got to pick some winners because I'm starting from behind here, man. I am 35% against the spread this year. You're 41. You're 7-10. I'm 6-11. I need a 4-0 week just to make it look respectable at this point. I need it bad. And with a 4-0 week for you, Daniel, you could get above 500. It'd still be a game below 500. But we got to get there. Daniel, our first game, Ole Miss and LSU. Just talked about it. Going to be a great uniform matchup. We could call this the Relationship Bowl. Call this what a week to hard launch a relationship. Landry Kiffin with weeks. Lane Kiffin tweeted, "Take the over." Elite. I love Lane on Twitter. I thought that was great. He's so active on Twitter, man.
Juice Kiffin on Twitter?
Yes. Dude, he's so active on Twitter that I'm just going to start tweeting him and see if he responds because he just responds to randos. We'll see. But
for sure.
Ole Miss, Daniel, this started off as a 2-point favorite in LSU's favor. It has gone as high as 2.5 to Ole Miss. It's at 1.5 Ole Miss favored right now. Very much a pick 'em game. Who do you like in this game in Oxford?
Yeah. There's part of me that's got, a sense of the yips because I'm still under 500 as far as our picks go.
Get it.
We're inching our way back. We're getting more data. We're understanding more. Jacob, I'm going to be bold with this one. I mean, this is my gut. Ole Miss is going to win this game. They're going to win it. It may be a shootout. There may be times where we're like, oh, this is, but LSU has been known for defense so far this year. Ole Miss has been known for offense. When they beat Tulane last week and the week before was Arkansas, or I'm mixing those two up. Tulane's a good team. They're a good quality opponent, and Ole Miss gave them no chance. Arkansas had that game won against Ole Miss at times, or at least had a a spark of life. Took the ball away. Ole Miss is just a better team. They just keep coming. We've talked a little bit about them so far this year. Austin Simmons was kind of the known commodity coming into the year. He was the backup quarterback to Jackson Dart last year. He had a great drive against Georgia. He had some games where he got to play. And then coming into this year, he won the job, and it seemed like this great, okay, he's the next guy. Trinidad Chambliss has come in. He's taken over this job right now while Austin Simmons is getting healthy. All respect in the world, Austin Simmons. I don't think he's getting this job back. Trinidad Chambliss has looked.
They have announced, by the way. I'm about to say this on the front end. This was within the last 30 minutes. Trinidad Chambliss is starting this weekend.
Okay.
So just for clarity, he's starting.
That's who I expect.
You were leaning toward. Yeah, that's right. You were leaning that way anyway, but he is officially starting.
I think he might be the best dual threat quarterback in the SEC, maybe in the country.
Wow.
The way he has played. And I just mean from an efficiency standpoint, he does both well. A lot of times when you call a guy dual threat, it means he's just a good runner. And sometimes if a guy's an elite passer and can scramble and get a first down, we all think that's dual threat. This guy, I think, is as close to 50% on both as anybody. So I take that for what it's worth. But Ole Miss lines of scrimmage has looked strong so far this year. I think just the vibes pick. I'm going Ole Miss. This is a proud dad who's going to avenge his daughter being in a relationship. You're not going to get the better of him. Whit Weeks is going to be running for his life, trying to tackle whoever he can. He's had some great games. Was it last year in this game? I think he had 18 tackles. So he definitely knows his way, around the defense. So him and his brother, great players. LSU's got a strong defense. I think this is their biggest challenge so far this year. That Clemson win has become more of a distant memory. It has become less impressive week after week. So give me Ole Miss. I'm laying the points. It's basically a pick 'em, 1.5. I think Ole Miss wins this one. Even if it becomes a shootout, I think they win by 7. But I like them by 10 in this game.
Wow. Okay, so good on good in this game, Daniel, is going to be the Ole Miss offense against the LSU defense. I would argue this is the first real test for both of those units. Hindsight's 2020, right? So who has challenged the LSU defense so far? Turns out not really anybody, but they've looked very good. And I get same for the Ole Miss offense. So in yards per play, Ole Miss is averaging 7.4 yards a play on offense. That's good for 14th in the country. LSU's defense ranks 21st in that category. As far as EPA per play, now I'll add context. I feel like I mentioned this a lot. I love advanced stats. I'm a nerd. If you're not like me and don't understand that, I'll explain it as simply as I can. Expected points added is EPA, right? So basically every play has a point value on it. If you average, you take all the data from college football for forever, and that, 2nd and 4 from the 46 has a point value on that play. Given that here's what the expected point should be for this play. So it's how do you perform relative to what the expected points were, right? So the expected points on 3rd and 3 from your own 46 might be, 0.012. And if you get a first down, your expected points added was 0.1. That's a good gain there. Anyway, simply I'll say EPA combines both efficiency and explosiveness. That's why I like it. Is yards per play is more about efficiency, and success rate more about efficiency. EPA accounts for that plus explosiveness, which I like. It's a good in context stat. That being said, EPA a play, Ole Miss's offense 3rd in the country so far this year. LSU's defense 27th in that category. EPA a rush, Daniel. This is, as far as EPA goes, the best running offense in the country in EPA per rush, with Ole Miss against a top 30 defense for LSU, and then again for the pass, Ole Miss is top 15. LSU's defense top 20. This is good on good. But I think the matchup that's going to decide the game, Daniel, is Ole Miss's defense against LSU's offense. How healthy is Garrett Nussmeier? If I can know an answer to that question, I might be more confident on this pick. Which line of scrimmage holds up in that matchup. Ole Miss's defensive line is not what it was a year ago, and Ole Miss's offensive line is, or excuse me, LSU's offensive line is not what it was a year ago. The Ole Miss defense is not efficient, but they are limiting explosive plays. So again, they rank 67th in yards per play allowed, and 121st in yards per reception, but they're 6th in EPA per play, and they're 3rd in EPA against the rush. So they're not efficient. They're allowing a high success rate. They're allowing a lot of yards per carry, but they're not giving up explosive runs or passes on defense. Meanwhile, LSU is 75th in yards per play, 109th in yards per carry. They've not been able to run the ball so far. They're 60th in EPA per play, 33rd in EPA per rush. So they're not being efficient or explosive. I think that decides the game. I'm taking Ole Miss to win. I'm taking Ole Miss to cover. LSU's 91st in success rate on offense right now. The offensive line's been poor. I just think Ole Miss has less holes at home, tight game. I like it by 4 to 7 points. I like Ole Miss to cover. Yeah, LSU's offense is just, they were right to ask Brian Kelly about the offense. It's not been up to the standard LSU. And Daniel, after having a bad week in picks last week, I said last week, trust your eyes. And I should have listened to myself, because if I had trust my eyes last week, Daniel, I would have gone 3-1 in picks. I should have trusted my eyes to what I saw with Nebraska in that first game against Cincinnati, their only real competition. I picked Indiana to win, but I should have trusted my eyes in that, all right, I know I'm kind of low in Cincinnati, but they're kind of blowing teams out. Trust your eyes, man. Something's wrong with the LSU offense. Ole Miss looks like they're clicking yet again under Lane Kiffin. Trust your eyes. The stats back me up on this one. Ole Miss to win and cover. You and I are on the same side there. We stay in the SEC. We go to College Station, Texas A&M. Kind of a weird spot here. Off a bye. Auburn coming off of a loss to Oklahoma. Can Auburn go on the road, beat Texas A&M? One of these matchups where you got ranked versus unranked. Texas A&M is at home, though, so that's why I didn't make that list. They're a 6.5-point favorite at home, Daniel. Who do you like in College Station?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I agree with you. This just kind of interesting spot for both of them. If you look at it, neither one of them, this isn't like a chief rivalry. This isn't like a game that both of them circle of like, I hate this team or anything like that. Auburn coming off of playing at Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold having his homecoming of sorts. And then you've got, Texas A&M is their first SEC game. They're coming off a bye week. So it's like, they're rested, so to speak. Auburn kind of a little more roughed up a little bit. That was a defensive game, just a battle against Oklahoma, line of scrimmage. They were not able to run the ball very well. I think they ended with like 60 total rushing yards. One of those was Jeremiah Cobb had like a 45-yard run, something like that. So it was like, they were not able to consistently do it. Now, I was surprised at down like when they needed it. Cam Coleman, I wasn't surprised by Cam Coleman, but I felt like Jackson Arnold was able to get the ball to Cam Coleman when they had to have it, when they had a long play getting out of their own side of the field. It was a deep pass. Touchdown pass to Cam Coleman was huge. So I came away impressed with Auburn, even though, Oklahoma won that game. These two teams both have quarterbacks, and Marcel Reed and Jackson Arnold that are maybe more proficient runners than passers. And so their left hand, so to speak, is their pass game. Jeremiah Cobb, leading rusher coming into this game. A&M's been a little bit better in the air. Again, they not quite the same competition. Obviously, they did come off that huge win against Notre Dame, finding a way to do it, in the last little bit. Putting all that together, I think that was a game that Texas A&M didn't want to play. I don't think they wanted to play in a shootout fashion. I think they want to be a defensive type team. I think this game will be lower scoring. It's not going to be a shootout. And I think they're going to be trading blows. I expect this to be a close game. 6.5-point spread for A&M, so a full touchdown. To me, this is a principal play. I like A&M to win the game. I'm going to potentially middle this, really saying I'm abstaining from officially saying Texas A&M will win. If you said who just outright wins this game, I would lean Texas A&M, but 6.5 points to me is too much. I'm going to go with Auburn. I like Auburn with the points, cover. this is a game that, they have to go on the road to Kyle Field. It's tough to go on the road in the SEC. So I don't know if they're going to come out with outright win, but I do think that this game's going to get kind of ugly and they're going to play close. I think Texas A&M probably could win, by a field goal and it be, just what the doctor ordered for both teams. So give me Auburn, give me the 6.5 points. I think A&M probably wins, but they're not 6.5 points better at home, I don't think, right now.
So, Daniel, I told you before the show, I feel confident about 3 picks. Not confident in one. This is the one I feel least confident in. I'm taking Auburn with you. So, in the points, I do think Texas A&M wins. It's a weird spot for Auburn. I hate that they're coming off a loss to Oklahoma and back-to-back road games, and Texas A&M is coming off a bye. I think that's why the spread is where it is, because I do think just situationally, like this could get sideways, right? Like Texas A&M winning by 17 would not surprise me. I'd just be like, oh yeah, back-to-back road games, that's exhausting, in the SEC. I get it. My worry with Texas A&M, that's why I'm unconfident, is I think Auburn wants to make Marcel Reed win through the air and them shut down the run game, which they've done well on defense this year. But Texas A&M has been able to do it. You saw them do it on the road at Notre Dame. So Texas A&M is going to want to make Jackson Arnold do the exact same thing. Auburn did successfully shut down Oklahoma's run game and prevented explosive plays. I think they can do that in this spot. I think Oklahoma's offense is better than Texas A&M's. Now, I wrote that sentence down on my notes before I knew about the hand injury Mateer had. So maybe that game gets sideways if he's not hurt the whole game. I don't know. Auburn was able to run the ball, not thrive running the ball in that game. Oklahoma's defense, I think Oklahoma's a better team than Texas A&M right now. So I watched the close performance on the road, and I'm with you. I'm like 6.5 just sounds like a lot. Texas A&M has struggled in the red area preventing points. They're 115th in points per quality drive allowed. So when teams get down there, they're scoring. Auburn's done well in that area. And Texas A&M 63rd in net points per drive. So again, like they're kind of letting teams score as they get down there. I think Auburn can win the game. I don't think they will. I'm taking the 6.5. I'm not confident in it. I don't know what my eyes are telling me here. The stats are kind of all over the place. The point spread, I think, should be closer, but it makes me think the bye week and the situational football is kind of going into this. Styles make fights. I think these are two teams that are built very similarly. So that's what makes me think this is like 24-21, like lower scoring. You just get out with a win, and you're happy with that if you're Texas A&M. So I'll take the points. I'm in the middle of it. I think A&M wins it. Give me the Auburn plus 6.5 in this one. We go to the whiteout, Penn State, 3.5 point favorite against Dan Lanning in Oregon. Daniel, who do you like in the whiteout at night again against a top-ranked opponent? Finally, I'm thanking NBC for getting this game instead of Fox. Who do you like in the whiteout?
Yeah, we before the season went through our picks. I was under the assumption, because I had been promised, that Penn State would be improved at wide receiver because they had these transfer receivers. We have not necessarily seen that yet as far as that explosiveness offensively. They have continued to miss Tyler Warren in this offense. I think this is their first test. So this is our first time we're going to get to kind of see these things come to fruition. So if they have been just slow going it, and not maybe cutting it loose, this is the first game we will see them cut loose, for what it's worth. Penn State. Whiteout, man, this is a big deal. It's at night. It's a whiteout. I said before this season that Penn State would go 1-1 in the games with Oregon and Ohio State. The easier game to say that they're going to win between those two is this one, because it's a home game. It's a whiteout. Yeah. It's got to be. Oregon's looked really good, man. For the past 2-3 weeks, I think I've thought of them as the number 1 team in the country. Dante Moore is special at quarterback. Dan Lanning is just one of those guys that's just going to have his team prepared. He's won big games. They've played each other. These coaches have gone against each other before. I look at all of that kind of stuff. Last week, sometimes they say it's good to learn from your mistakes, but it's even better to learn from others' mistakes. and Jacob, this is not a dig at you, but you picked Nebraska against Michigan, and you didn't
Shouldn't have
trust your
done it.
eyes. So I am not going to fall into that trap and take Penn State. I'm going with Oregon. They get points on the road, 3.5 points on the road. Give me the Ducks, dude. Shout out Oregon. I think they're the best team in the country. If you're going to give the best team in the country any points, I don't care if it's a whiteout. I think this team is whiteout proof. So I think Oregon wins outright, but I'll just take 3.5 as some buffer just in case. How about that?
Dan Lanning said, you don't play an environment, you play the team across from you. That'll give you some, in the right mindset there.
For sure.
Let's add some context, too. It's going to be said ad nauseum this week, but it needs to be said. James Franklin's record against top 10 teams. Daniel, I feel like the wrong numbers thrown out. I just went back and counted I went to each individual season and looked at results against top 10 teams at the time they played them. He's 4-20 since he took over at Penn State against top 10 teams. And if you take out some bowl game wins, I mean, like 2024, 2 in the regular season against Big Ten teams that are in the top 10. I'll just read you in the regular season. Here's his record against top 10 teams: 0-2, 0-2, 0-2, 0-3, 0-1, 0-1, 0-2, 0-1, 2-1. That was 2016. 0-2, 0-1. Oregon's going to win the game, Daniel. You got to prove to me you can win these games, man. And the reason is, here's the thing: James Franklin gets a lot of crap because of this and gets called overrated as a head coach. He's absolutely not. Penn State is, on average, the third best program in the Big Ten, probably fourth now. They're just not on the same level. They don't have the same level of athlete as Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. When they play those teams, they lose, even in whiteout games. The last whiteout they won against one of those teams that was ranked in the top 10, because Michigan's had some down years, was Ohio State in 2016. Oregon has looked like the best team in the country. I think a great matchup to watch in this game is going to be DeCorey Moore against A.J. Harris. That'll be exciting. But Daniel, if you're asking which quarterback I trust more in the spot, I trust Dante Moore more on the road than I do Drew Allen at home. He's looked awful this year. Penn State is 78th in the country in points per quality drive. They're 85th in third and fourth down success rate, and Oregon is top 25 in that category on defense. Oregon wins 24-20. I need to see it before I take Penn State in a spot like this. Yeah, Oregon plus 3.5. Josh Pate picked Penn State, and he said the reason was like Penn State needs this win. They have to have it. And I agree. They have to have it. That doesn't mean they're going to get it. They've been having to have, they need a win like this for several years. Now, this is the team. I know this is like a, if not now, win, Penn State team. I think it's going to be win. I think that's going to be the answer. I'm trusting my eyes, Daniel. Oregon plus 3.5, but we're not going to need it. They're going to win outright. I'm with you. All right. Biggest game of the day for my book, Daniel. Georgia and Alabama. This has been the game of the sport, you could say, for the last decade or so. This is every SEC champion since 2014, except for 1 year, that 2019 LSU team. There was a while there, Daniel, where from 2007 until 2021, with the exception of 1 year, which was 2013, the winner of the national championship had to go through Alabama to get there. They had to beat Alabama. They've been the standard of the sport. Nick Saban retires. Kirby's pretty consistently known as the heir apparent. He runs the sport now, best coach in the sport. 1-1 against Kalen DeBoer. Kirby's 1-6 against Bama. You mentioned a couple other streaks at play here. 33 consecutive home wins for Georgia. It's the longest streak in the country. I've got some other stats I want to save for my pick, Daniel. Georgia, 2.5-point favorite at home, which means neutral site. This could be a pick 'em or a slight Alabama favorite. Daniel, who do you like in this game in Athens?
Yeah, this one you mentioned, not really having a beat on Texas A&M, Auburn. I feel that way about this one, to be honest with you. It's one of the ultimate, mind freaks, I guess, or you're like, I don't know what to believe at times. So, you and I have been close to this game for a long time. We've seen Georgia and Alabama play, and we've seen their trajectories even when they don't play certain seasons. Obviously, there's all the, the culmination of, Kirby Smart, under the tutelage of Nick Saban, comes to Georgia, essentially replicates what is going on at Alabama, comes to fruition by actually winning a championship over them in 2021, followed up by back-to-back national championship season. Alabama has still had Kirby and Georgia's number in those years. Other than that national championship game win, Georgia would be winless against Alabama otherwise. So, kind of factoring all that in, whether it's SEC championship or a regular season game, this is the first time since Kirby Smart has been at Georgia that the game is in Athens. Does that matter? I think it does. But is this do you chalk it up to, okay, it was the master versus the apprentice, if you want to, go with Star Wars, potentially with, Nick Saban just owning, all of his assistants, flip it over to now it's Kalen DeBoer, and maybe there's not the same tendency lock that there may have been previously where they were trying to analyze each other previously. Now it's like, okay, we're just playing ball. Well, that's still a very good team over there. They still have great players. It's a different coaching staff. They play a different defense than they used to. And different doesn't necessarily mean worse. After game one this year, I would be ready to just say slam dunk. It's Georgia after, Florida State, beating Alabama as handily as they did. Now that obviously there's weather involved, there was some shock involved, there was some different things like that. Alabama has flipped the switch. They flipped the switch against Louisiana Monroe, 73-0. I know it's Louisiana Monroe. Say whatever joke you want. They beat them 73-0. They didn't play around. They beat Wisconsin handily. I know Wisconsin is not Wisconsin of old, not even close. So, maybe it's a glorified G6 win. Maybe it's, a P4 win. They're still in Power 4, so we're going to call it a Power 4 win. They beat them 38-14. Georgia had a very impressive win against Tennessee, but how did they beat them? They did beat them on the road, and they beat them in a game that they didn't like to play. Both teams have had a bye week. Kind of had to salivate on it and decide, how do I see this game playing out? Ty Simpson has been, very efficient ever since, basically the second game on in getting the ball to his receivers. For everybody that talks about Ryan Williams, I mean, Jeremy Bernard is their offensive MVP. He does everything. They slide him in to run the ball. They throw the ball to him. He leads their team in receiving yards. I think he might be their fastest player, or if not, he's close to it. 3 touchdowns on the season so far. And they get Jam Miller back this week, or at least they're projected to at running back. He's their projected starter to start the year. So I think he brings some toughness. He brings some protection offensively. He's very good at the pass protection from the running back position. So Alabama's offense against Georgia's defense, I do think they're going to have success. Now you got to flip it around. Does Georgia have enough offensively to outscore that? They had to do it against Tennessee on the road. They're going to be at home for the first time, like I said, in the Kirby Smart era against Alabama. Does that make a big difference? I mean, this home environment for Georgia has seen 33 straight wins. I like Gunnar Stockton with his legs, and after the game against Tennessee, I like him with his arm. I think that he can make the throws he needs to when he needs to be clutch. I think Georgia wins this game. That's my gut. I think Georgia's going to win. We've just seen so much of the other. I'm baking in a lot of this, Jacob, from Penn State and Oregon. My thoughts of, I'm not going to overthink this. Penn State has not done it. I bake that into Georgia has not just outright beaten Alabama, but they also haven't had the opportunity to do it at home. And I'm going to use that kind of as my guidepost here. The SEC is hard to win. It's hard to win on the road. I like the home team to win. I picked Texas A&M to win, but to lose, not to cover. So, I'm in that sense, it's not all home teams here, but give me Georgia. If it's 2.5, I'll take that. I'll lay the 2.5 to where a field goal win gets it. I don't think there's style points involved at all. I think you throw that out. I think a 1-point win is acceptable. It's just win at this point. So give me Georgia, lay the 2.5. This one's going to be hard, though. It's going to be tense the whole night.
Does this change? Sorry, I thought I updated this on here. It is 3 now.
Okay.
Does that change your pick at all?
I mean, so
It's
worst
moving
case,
back
I'm
and
getting a
forth a little bit.
push. Worst case, I'm getting a push if I get a 3-point win. I'll stick with Georgia laying the points.
Okay, this one's a big one, man. I said Kirby's 1-6 against Bama. 0 of those games in Athens. 33 consecutive home wins. Can't win DeBoer's record against Power 4 opponents. 7-5. His record on the road against Power 4 opponents. 2-4. But look, Florida State game, I firmly believe was in the past. You and I are part of several group chats, and I read some the dynasty's dead, Bama's dead, and I'm like, we saw this team do this last year. And it might be, but I'm like, it's one game. It's week one. They have their roster to absolutely flip the switch. We saw them get all the way up for the Georgia game. We've seen DeBoer also give trouble to some, I'll say, Saban tree defenses. So, I mean, completely out-schemed and out-coached. Kirby for a half last year, completely outclassed and out-schemed, landing 2 or 3 times when he was at Washington and Laney was at Oregon. Let's take a look at the Alabama offense. So, yards per play, Alabama's offense 18th. Georgia's defense ranks 62nd in that category. EPA per play, Alabama 22nd, Georgia's defense 3rd in that category. EPA per rush, Bama 46th, Georgia's defense 9th in that category. EPA per pass, 24th for Alabama, 8th for Georgia. 3rd and 4th down success rate, 26th for Alabama. Georgia defense ranks 15th in that category. We've also seen the ceiling of what Alabama can do, and we saw what Tennessee was able to do to Georgia through the air. So if I'm looking at a matchup here, it's Alabama has the opportunity to do what Tennessee did through the air, and Georgia showed a weakness there in that Tennessee game. Also, Georgia's gotten 0 sacks on the year, which is kind of crazy from defensive linemen, especially. Can they flip that in this game? Let's look on the other side of the ball. Georgia's offense, 66th in yards per play. Bama's defense, 31st in that category. EPA, Georgia 7th. EPA per rush, 9th. EPA per pass, 7th. The offense has looked very good. Bama's defense has the ability to look good. Here's where I see a major problem, Daniel. 3rd and 4th down success rate. And I like 3rd and 4th down success rate because this stat accounts for if you go forward on 4th down, it doesn't punish you for not getting it on 3rd down. So it's 3rd and 4th down success rate in that if you go forward and 4th and get it, that counts as a successful play for both of those categories.
It's kind of like OPS in baseball. Like you factor in the failure of one is a success on the next one.
Yeah, because if if it's 4th and 3 and you're on the opponent's 45 and we've got 2 plays, it's not going to punish you for getting 2 yards on 3rd down and then getting 2 more on 4th. It's just going to say you were successful on that drive to get the first down on 3rd or 4th down.
Right. Okay.
In that category, Georgia's offense 22nd in the country, Bama's defense 104th. So that's where I'm starting to see a crack here. So part of me, Daniel, was they've looked unbeatable since the Florida State game. That was a light bulb moment. Like, they fixed a lot of problems. Let me tell you what I can't unsee. I can't unsee what they did in the road last year. Their one, great moment was against LSU on the road. They played undisciplined against Florida State. That is what's hard to unsee. They have all the talent in the world. This roster lines up, and you could argue this roster is better than Georgia's roster. The defensive line has not lived up to the billing. Georgia's going to run Gunner Stockton like Florida State ranked Tommy Castellanos. They're going to run him in this game. This is what when you have a running quarterback, you kind of save the legs for these games of like no holds barred, just like we're going to run you as many times as it takes because we want to win the game. Georgia's going to do that with Gunner Stockton this game. My question is, can Georgia rush the passer? I do think whichever team can get to the quarterback will win the game. Georgia last year, when it looked like it had no ability to do so, went on the road to Austin. They flipped the switch. They had 7 sacks in that game against Texas. They had 6 sacks against Texas in the SEC championship. The offensive line was probably the best in the conference last year. If Georgia does that, I think it solves some of the secondary problems you saw against Tennessee. If you're getting to the quarterback, it's not going to matter how long you have to be in coverage. I think Georgia makes this a non-issue. I think they blitz all night. And I don't think the Alabama offensive line, for as talented as they are, they've not showed the effort. It's a 2.5-point spread. I think this is a touchdown game. Really hard to unsee that Florida State game. I know they've looked perfect the last 2 weeks. I just think some of the stuff you saw in that game is not fixable in 3 weeks, as in effort, especially when you get down and you're on the road in a hostile environment and you've got almost 100,000 people that are against you. That's a lot harder to overcome in 3 weeks, and I don't like what I saw effort-wise 3 weeks ago. I also think I thought Josh Pate made a good point about this of if I'm going to bet on this, I'm going to have to count on 2 trends flipping in the same area, which is DeBoer's been awful on the road and Kirby's been unbeatable at home. I'm going to have to count on both of those flipping for me to pick Alabama. And I don't think Georgia's going to be awful at home, even if DeBoer is way better on the road. In which case, that's why it's a 2.5 point spread, right? This is why it's Georgia kicks a field goal as time expires, and it's 31-28. Georgia wins. I could see this being a 1 point game. I do think it's going to be close. I don't see a blowout coming in this game. I see it being a lot lower scoring than the Tennessee game. This should be a really, really fun game to watch. It stinks that you've got two huge games on at the same time, Daniel. If you've got YouTube TV, go ahead and do the dual box at least for these two games and hope that one of them goes into a blowout so you can watch the other one. But really excited for this one. Daniel, I hope we go 4-0 because for the first time we've picked all the same games this week.
Yeah, that's I don't know if it's a good omen, a bad omen. We're always off by at least one game between each other. So let's both go 4-0. How about that? Let's have a week.
That'd be great. That'd be great to do. Be sure to follow us at the Extra Point Pod on YouTube and Instagram. We'll be back next week to recap this great week of college football and pick the next week ahead. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Karnes with a K. That'll do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.